Today we're looking at something that might seem a little bit, well, unconventional for this time of year, and that's a solo Christmas.
Solo Christmas.
Yeah, we all think about, big family gatherings and all that, but what about when you find yourself spending the holidays alone? Maybe by choice, maybe not, but either way, we're going to unpack not just how to survive a solo Christmas, but how to actually enjoy it, how to actually rock it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like ingrained in our culture that, holidays, Christmas especially, you have to have that big gathering. But actually, when you really step back and look at it, a solo Christmas can offer this incredible chance to kind of redefine what the holidays mean to you, strip away all those expectations and really focus on what brings you joy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the research that we're looking at today dives right into, this sense of freedom and flexibility.
Right.
There's no need to coordinate with, 10 other people's schedules, travel across the country, or even worry about pleasing everyone else. You really do become the architect of your own day. What's something about this idea of freedom and flexibility that really stands out to you?
Well, it makes me think about choice. So often with holidays, we're just going through the motions, right? Almost on autopilot. But with a solo Christmas, you can do whatever you want. Maybe it's finally trying that recipe you've been eyeing or staying in your PJs all day and reading a book. Just that freedom to choose what you want to do can be really powerful.
I love that, the freedom to choose and no pressure to buy, 20 different gifts for a whole crew. The research even mentions that a solo Christmas can be a real budget saver. You don't have to break the bank trying to keep up with all the Joneses.
Oh yeah, that financial aspect is something to keep in mind. The holidays really are a breeding ground for overspending. But when you're having a solo Christmas, you can set your own budget and focus on what's important to you, whether those are experiences or gifts that actually align with your values, right?
Exactly. Speaking of experiences, what about the food? We've all seen that cliche, right? Of the sad solo diner on Christmas. But this research just throws that whole image out the window.
Oh, totally. It's not a pity party. It's really about looking at solo dining as a chance to indulge in your favorites. Maybe you try a new recipe or recreate a dish that has special memories for you.
Yeah, that's huge for me. Food and memories are so tied together, especially around the holidays. I remember one year, my family, we tried this fancy new dessert recipe, and it was a total disaster. But we ended up laughing so hard. It wasn't perfect, but it became this hilarious core memory.
Exactly. Sometimes the most meaningful experiences come from those unexpected moments. And with a solo Christmas, you have the freedom to create your own perfect, whether that's, a 5-course meal or takeout in your pajamas. It's really about whatever feels good to you, what feels right, authentic.
I love that. And that actually leads us to another important aspect of a solo Christmas that the research highlights, and that's self-care. Solo time means permission for unapologetic pampering. What are your thoughts on that?
I think what's really interesting here is how the research connects self-care with managing holiday stress, right? Because the holidays can be a lot, even the best of circumstances. But when you're solo, you can really focus on activities that recharge your batteries. You can prioritize yourself.
Definitely. The research even lists some specific examples like long baths, trying a new face mask, even just wearing your most comfortable outfit. It's about those little things, those little indulgences that just make you feel good.
It makes me think about self-compassion, which the research also touches on. Essentially, it's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend who's going through a tough time, especially during the holidays when, everything's so heightened, emotions are running high.
Such a good point, and it's something we don't always remember to do. We get caught up in the shoulds, all the expectations. But sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is just give ourselves a break.
For sure, a solo Christmas is a great opportunity to do that, to practice that self-compassion, to tune in to your needs and to set boundaries. Really prioritize your well-being.
So we've talked about freedom, the chance to indulge in self-care, but what about the emotional side of things? The holidays can be a really tough time for a lot of people, especially if they're feeling lonely.
Absolutely. That's a huge piece of it. And, it's important to acknowledge that while a solo Christmas can be freeing, it can also bring up some difficult feelings like sadness or loneliness, which are, totally valid. But what I find helpful is how the research really distinguishes between loneliness and being alone, because they're not the same thing.
Right. And the research really emphasizes that it's okay to feel whatever comes up, whatever you're feeling. But you have to be kind to yourself in those moments. Imagine, talking to a friend who's feeling down. You wouldn't tell them to just, snap out of it. You'd offer them empathy and support. We need to give ourselves that same kindness.
That's a great way to put it. And the research even offers some practical things you can do, some strategies for when you are feeling those tougher emotions, like journaling or reaching out to a trusted friend or therapist. It's about acknowledging those feelings and working through them in a healthy way.
And remember, even if you're choosing a solo Christmas, connection can still be a part of your day. You can connect on your terms.
That's a really good point. The research even gives some suggestions for how to connect in ways that feel good to you, like sending a voice note to a friend, sharing a funny holiday meme with your family group chat, or even volunteering if you want some in-person interaction. It's all about finding that balance that feels good for you.
Finding that balance that feels good, I like that, because even connecting virtually can be overwhelming sometimes, especially during the holidays when everyone's posting these picture-perfect celebrations online.
That's so true. And actually, the research even recommends a digital detax, especially during the holidays. Think about it. You're choosing to have a solo Christmas to create a peaceful and joyful experience. So why let all the curated highlight reels on social media disrupt that?
It's easy to fall into that comparison trap, right? Especially during the holidays. But what if we shifted our perspective a bit and looked at those quiet moments as a gift? What if the peace and quiet of a solo Christmas was like the ultimate form of self-care?
That's a beautiful way to look at it. And the research offers some nice suggestions for leaning into that solitude, like curling up with a good book or going for a walk or even just enjoying the quiet of your surroundings.
Yeah.
All those moments of quiet, they can be so restorative.
It's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system, right? And speaking of quiet time, the research actually highlights how solitude can be a really powerful catalyst for creativity and reflection.
It's true. It's like without all the distractions, you have this unique opportunity to explore your thoughts, be creative, and maybe even, learn some new things about yourself. It's like a built-in retreat.
I love that. A built-in retreat. And building on that idea of reflection, the research actually suggests using this quiet time to think about the year ahead. Maybe set some intentions, brainstorm goals, or even make a vision board.
Makes sense, right? You take stock of where you are now, where you want to be, and set intentions for the year ahead.
I love that. It makes me think about New Year's resolutions, how we usually make them with all this hype and pressure. But maybe a solo Christmas provides a more gentle and thoughtful space for that kind of reflection.
Totally. Instead of, big sweeping resolutions, maybe it's just about identifying one or two small things, meaningful changes you want to make. The research even suggests creating a solo Christmas bucket list for the next year, filled with experiences you want to have, goals you want to reach.
Ooh, a bucket list. I love that. Born out of a peaceful solo Christmas. And speaking of new experiences, the research also mentions this idea of making new memories, even if we're celebrating solo.
That's so important, right? Taking ownership of the holiday and making it your own, whoever you're with, wherever you are. And sometimes those solo experiences are the ones that lead to the most unexpected discoveries.
It's funny, when we first started talking about solo Christmas, I had this picture in my head of someone, alone in a dark, quiet house. But now it feels so much bigger. Like there's this whole world of possibilities waiting to be discovered.
I'm so glad you said that. It's amazing what reframing the narrative can do. It opens up so many doors.
Absolutely. It's like we found this secret map to a whole new way of experiencing the holidays. And, I love how much the research stresses that solo Christmas doesn't have to mean feeling lonely.
Yeah, that's really the heart of it, recognizing that solitude can actually be this source of strength and creativity and connection.
Well said. It's amazing how we started with solo Christmas and now we're talking about self-discovery and growth. Feels like we've uncovered some pretty valuable stuff here, not just about the holidays, but just life in general.
Yeah, it is. It's funny how these unconventional topics we dive into, they could really lead to some interesting places. They really challenge those assumptions we have about how things are supposed to be,
So true. We've talked about embracing freedom and self-care, navigating the tougher emotions, connecting in meaningful ways, and using solitude as a catalyst for creativity and reflection. It's almost like we've created a guide for not just surviving a solo Christmas, but really, truly thriving during it.
Yeah. And, a lot of what we've talked about, these strategies and things, they apply all year round, not just at Christmas. We talked about that solo Christmas bucket list, but that could be a self-care list, a joy list, anything really for any time of the year, taking what we've learned and applying it to our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's like taking that spirit of a solo Christmas, the intentionality, the self-care, the joy, and carrying it with us all year.
It's a good reminder that No matter what your circumstances are during the holidays, whether you're alone or with people, you can always create a meaningful and fulfilling experience for yourself.
So we've covered the freedom, the self-care, the connection, even the potential for growth that comes with a solo Christmas. But what about when things feel, I don't know, a bit overwhelming, like when the quiet is just a bit much? What does the research say about that?
Well, even when it's challenging, the research reminds us that solitude can be a gift, a chance to, reconnect with yourself, explore your inner landscape, and tap into that creative side.
Yeah, giving yourself permission to just be, no pressure to perform or entertain others. It's like a mindfulness practice almost.
Exactly. And it even gives some really nice suggestions for leaning into that stillness. Like, curling up with a good book, taking a walk, or simply just enjoying the quiet around you. There's a quote from the research that really captures this, I think. It says, "In the hush of solitude, we hear the whispers of our own hearts."
That's beautiful. It makes me think about something I started doing, actually. I take a solo nature walk on Christmas morning, just, bundle up, find a quiet spot, and breathe in the fresh air. It's really grounding for me.
I love that. And, it's not just about passively relaxing. Solitude can be this powerful engine for personal growth. The research actually encourages using this time for reflection and planning for the year ahead.
So enjoying the present, but also using it to think about future goals and aspirations.
Right. It's about taking stock of where you are, where you want to be, and setting intentions that are in line with your values and goals.
Makes me think about New Year's resolutions, how we make them, usually surrounded by so much pressure. But maybe a solo Christmas gives you a more, gentle, a more introspective way to reflect.
I think so. Instead of those big, overwhelming resolutions, maybe it's picking one or two small things, but meaningful changes. The research even suggests and this is great, a solo Christmas bucket list for the coming year. All the things you want to do, goals you want to achieve.
I am obsessed with this bucket list idea, created out of the quiet of a solo Christmas. And speaking of new experiences, the research also brings up this idea of creating new memories, even when you're solo.
It's crucial. Taking ownership of the holiday and making it yours. Doesn't matter who you're with or where you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes those solo experiences, they lead to the most unexpected discoveries.
It's funny how we started this whole deep dive thinking about solo Christmas, and now we're talking about self-discovery and personal growth and stuff.
I know, right? It's pretty amazing what can come out of these these unconventional topics. It's like we challenge those ideas about how we think things are supposed to be.
For sure. We talked about embracing freedom, right? Indulging, treating ourselves with self-care, and then all those emotions that come up, and connecting in those meaningful ways, even using solitude as a way to be more creative and reflect. I feel like we've created this blueprint for not just surviving a solo Christmas, but really thriving during it.
Yeah, and like we were saying, so much of this applies all year round. Remember that solo Christmas bucket list we talked about? Well, that could be a self-care list or a joy list or whatever you want to call it, and use it anytime. We can take what we've learned here and use it in our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's like taking that spirit of a solo Christmas, that intentionality, the self-care and the joy, and carrying it with us all year long.
It's a good reminder that no matter what's going on around you, whether you're alone or with people, you can always create a good experience for yourself, a meaningful one.
Absolutely. So to wrap up our deep dive into solo Christmas, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, a question. What's one small thing you can do for yourself this Christmas? Something that brings you joy, maybe a little self-care. Doesn't matter if you're spending Christmas solo or not. Could be something super simple like taking a few minutes to just breathe, or having a cup of tea, or maybe calling a friend you haven't talked to in a while.
That's a great question. It's good to remember that even with all the craziness of the holidays, we can always take a little time for ourselves, for our own well-being, for those simple things that bring joy. It's important.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that about wraps up our deep dive into solo Christmas. We hope you got something out of it, some good insights and some inspiration to create a holiday that feels right for you no matter how you celebrate. Happy holidays, everyone.